Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Miss.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you all. Yes, so today we will be starting with a new unit. We have completed unit 3 and we will be starting with unit 4, day 1's content of unit 4. I hope you have completed the self-study tasks related to unit 3. If you haven't completed them, you need to finish them and complete them as soon as possible. So when it comes to unit 4, we will be focusing on learning behavior. The topic is learner behavior. Studying about learner behavior and issues related to learner behavior, right? This entire unit is about learner behavior, and today we will be focusing on the fundamental aspects connected to learner behavior as well as the learning styles that are involved when it comes to handling learners. Look at the subtopics. We will be trying to understand what learner behavior is all about, a definition or maybe an explanation about learner behavior, certain characteristics connected to learner behavior, behavior and its functions, learner behavior and its functions, how to handle learner behavior in the classroom when it comes to the teacher, how should a teacher approach different learners with different kinds of behavior and facilitating their behavior towards positivity. And the last one will be the learning style based upon the learner behavior, or even forget about the learner behavior. Each learner will have different learning styles. Thereby, we need to know something about the learning styles of learners. So these are the subtopics that we will be handling today. Right, before studying about learner behavior, we need to know about the different stages or the different phases that a child or a learner goes through, starting from birth until he finishes his school education. What are the different stages that are getting involved in his growth and development? Or maybe what are the different phases that he goes through when it comes to his developmental process, right? So look at the first line. Diversified behavioral patterns can be observed in children right from the time they are born, right? So at home itself, you find different behavioral patterns. From the time they are born, they behave in different ways. Maybe at the beginning, they just cry and maybe they may utter a few words. Their behavior is very much limited during the period of infancy. But when they become toddlers or when they are in around 2 to 3 years, they show or they bring out different kinds of behavior, far more challenging to handle than that in the what they how they behave during infancy. They communicate direct or indirect information through their behavior. So in each of these stage, directly or indirectly, the child is trying to communicate something to the adult or to the person who is next to him. Starting from simple reflections during infancy, the learner behavior gets extended to different forms during each stage of life. Right? So in the infancy, it's purely simple behavioral patterns can be observed. Maybe laughing or smiling or doing certain motor activities, that's it. But when it comes to early childhood, middle childhood, the behavior becomes very much complicated that even the parents can't understand the reason for those kind of behavioral patterns. So you have to remember these different developmental stages of a child, right? So basically you have 5 stages starting from infancy and then toddlerhood, 1 to 2 years of age. All these are homebound. Teachers don't have any kind of influence over these, but definitely the behavioral traits or the behavioral patterns that are predominant during these first 2 stages will have a bearing when the child enters into the school, or maybe when he is around 6 or 11 years old. Right? So here, early childhood is the preschool stage, which shapes the behavior of the child to a certain extent. So all these 5 stages are interdependent. Definitely one stage influences the other. If the child has missed out on certain behavioral patterns or if it is lacking behind, definitely you can't think of a child who will be capable of having the behavioral pattern of a 6-year-old when he enters into the school. So what are the 5 stages? Read out. Quickly read out the 5 stages, developmental stages of a child. Infancy.
Toddlerhood, early childhood, middle and late childhood, and adolescence.
Right. Now we come towards explaining learner behavior. What is learner behavior all about? Read. Learner behavior emphasizes the crucial link between the way in which children and young people learn and their social knowledge and how to conduct themselves. Right? So look at the highlighted phrase once again. Link between the way in which children and young people learn. What are they learning? Their social knowledge and how to conduct themselves. Right? So in order to conduct themselves in an acceptable manner, or maybe to possess adequate social knowledge to handle situations, they basically behave in a particular manner. So that is what is identified as learner behavior. In doing this, the focus is upon establishing positive relationships across elements of self, others, and curriculum. So if they are to learn about social, maybe social knowledge or social ethics or any other culture-related information, practices, definitely they have to interact with others around them. It can be the family members, it can be their friends or peers, it can be people in the society at large, thereby in learning or maybe in acquiring the social knowledge, definitely relationship, maintaining a relationship with self, with the person itself, having some positive relationship with the person, trusting that he can cope with the situation, and also based upon the interaction that he is having with the others, and also the school curriculum through education. Curriculum stands here for education. Through education, their behavior gets shaped, right? So these are the three important factors that tend to shape the behavior of a person, right? So even if one of these are not properly handled, definitely that will have a negative impact on learner behavior. So overall, in this slide, you need to understand what is learner behavior and the factors that are influencing the behavior. Now read what is understood through relationship with self, then with others, with curriculum. Read that. Right? Relationship with self means having a very positive note, being confident about himself, that he will be able to handle certain situation, he will be able to overcome problems, cope with certain people or situations. That kind of an attitude is classified or is identified as relationship with self. So feels confident as a learner who has internalized a view that he or she is unable to succeed as a learner. So the learner should not internalize a view that he will not be able to succeed. He should always be positive about his capabilities. If the person is possible about his capabilities, if he is confident, and if he has self-confidence, that is the first or the initial step that would shape his behavior. A pupil who does not feel confident as a learner, or if he or she is unable to succeed as a learner, will be more unlikely to engage in learning. That means he won't have relationship with himself that would result in a negative manner. He won't be able to learn anything new, right? So he will just think that he is good for nothing. And as a result of it, no positive behavior can be instilled. Then comes relationship with others. First, the child needs to be positive about himself. He should be confident in himself. And then he should have or he should maintain some kind of an interaction with those of them who are around him. That is what is identified as behavior in context. All behavior of a learner needs to be understood as behavior in context. He can't remain as an introvert. He has to have some kind of an interaction with his family, friends, and the others around him. Behavior by pupils is triggered as much by their interactions with others. So the interactions can take place with the other friends, teachers, or adults in their own setting. Any response got from others will have either positive or negative impact on the learner's behavior. Right? So even though if the student is confident about himself, if the relationship with others are not healthy, if he is getting involved with unwanted people or maybe people who are leading him towards illegal activities and all, definitely the behavioral traits or the learner behavior will become negative. Right? So relationship with others is very important. Teachers have to monitor, parents have to monitor with whom they are associating. And then comes the relationship with the curriculum, that is education. Learner behavior and curriculum progress are very closely linked. Teachers who promote a sense of meaningful curriculum progress, meaningful teaching learning scenario for each pupil will be more likely to create a positive behavioral environment for the learners with the curriculum. Right? So if the curriculum, if the teaching learning process is meaningful for the learner, if it interests him, definitely his attention will be partially or maybe more than 50% focused on the curriculum. That will bring about some kind of a positive behavior. You know, when a child is engaged in studies, automatically his focus will, unwanted aspects, he will not focus on. All the distractors will get removed. Right? So these are the three important factors that would shape the learner behavior in anyone. It can be a child, it can be an adult. These three factors will determine their behavioral pattern. Right? Then we come towards, okay, tell me what learner behavior is, just as you understand. Try to explain, try to define what is learner behavior all about. And what are the important things that influence it?
Himself, others, and the curriculum.
Okay, those are the factors. What is learner behavior? If you ask to define it or explain, elaborate on it, how will you elaborate?
It's
How
a
do children
connection.
learn?
Sorry?
How the way they are communicating with the society.
Way of communicating.
Yeah, how they are having
Not only,
How do
yeah,
they learn?
Yeah,
How do
they are
they learn
learning.
and how,
Right. Through communication, they tend to learn. Why are they communicating? In order to learn something.
how do they learn and how they apply it?
Right. How do they learn and how are they going to apply it? What are they learning basically? Each person from the time of birth, what do we learn? Forget about the ABCD or the language. I'm not referring to that. What other important things we learn? Or we
How
are
to
Behavior.
how to have
Etiquettes.
self-confidence, how to interact with others and not being an introvert, and how to being positive and engaging in learning activities.
Right. The survival skills, basically the survival skills, right? So before we embark into formal learning, how to maybe when confronting a problem, how to solve it or how to handle it, those kind of survival skills, it can get connected to the social setup or maybe to the cultural environment in which the person is placed. Those are learned through interaction. So he is interacting with different sources and learning that. What are the three main sources that the person interacts with?
Self, others, and curriculum.
Others and curriculum.
Then we come towards characteristics of learner behavior. Read. Learner behavior is determined by hereditary and environmental factors. You know, we talked about learning something. So when it comes to learning, definitely the person has to have some kind of an intelligence. If he is totally dumb, never he can learn. Thereby, intelligence is considered to be important, is an important trait that modulates the learner behavior. So intelligence is partially, it's determined by hereditary factors and also through environment. 50-50, hereditary and environment both impacts the intelligence level of a person. Especially personality traits other than intelligence, especially personality traits, likes, dislikes, all those are connected to hereditary. Right? It can be certain moral qualities like saying, being bold enough or maybe speaking the truth. All those are believed to be hereditary. Students learn a pattern of behavior through observation or through feedback and consequences. We are talking about the characteristics of learner behavior. Therefore, learner behavior has several characteristics. One is it's partially determined by the hereditary and environment. Certain qualities cannot be changed. It's very hard to make a person learn certain habits. Why? Since it is hereditary. Certain things, when people change their environment, they change their behavior too. Maybe the way they dress, or maybe their religious beliefs. Right? So religious beliefs can come under both. So thereby, certain traits are hereditary and certain traits are environment. That is one characteristic. Then the second one is behavior of a person will not just take place. Humans, they observe a role model and tend to fashion their own behavior. Right? So observation, role models, here modeling, social learning or modeling is very important. It's a very powerful tool in stabilizing the behavioral patterns of a particular learner, particularly children. More than adults, children, they need to have someone, it can be the parent or it can be an adult, to observe and then follow that particular behavioral pattern. And also feedback. It can be the advice given by the parents or the elders. Observation alone can mislead. If they are immature, if the learners are immature, if they don't know to distinguish the right and the wrong, they might get misled just by looking at the glamorous attire of a person, or maybe just by taken up by how he speaks and all. So in that instance, the feedback, the advice or the guidance, that too helps in establishing a positive learner behavior. Consequences, their own consequences. When they do something, the results that they get. If the results are positive, they tend to stick on to the same behavioral pattern. If the results are negative, if they have got something bad out of that action, then they will refrain from that behavior. Right? So learner behavior, though it's partially hereditary and environmental, even these three are very important. Observing, in order to observe, there should be a role model, social learning or modeling. Role models should be available. Apart from that, advice, guidance, and also the consequences can shape the behavioral pattern. Parents, caretakers have a great impact upon children from infancy to early childhood. Not only parents, caretakers, even the peers have a great influence on children, their own peers. Parents and caretakers, they guide them, they provide them the necessary feedback. Then you have certain social models who are very much imitated by the learners. It can be teachers, peers, any other social stars, religious leaders, actors, actresses, right? So all those people become very powerful social role models. So being an example or maybe leading them towards the correct social model becomes very important. If the parents, caretakers fail in their duty at this particular level, that is basically childhood, early childhood, then it's very middle and late childhood, early childhood, then it's very hard for them to instill good learner behavior in the child. Read some other characteristics. Behavior is learned and therefore can be unlearned. This is not applicable for each and every trait, but for certain behavioral patterns, this can be applied, right? So certain behavioral patterns, maybe say the way they dress, or maybe the way they speak or handle the language. They can learn that from somebody by imitating somebody. And if at all, if they have learned it in the wrong way, deliberately, if they practice it, or deliberately, if they take it into their brains, they can unlearn that particular behavioral trait. This one we discussed. Learned by behavior is learned by imitating a role model to which the learner has immediate access, right? So mostly it becomes the teacher or maybe a very close family member, their own parents. They become their immediate role model. Each student is unique, therefore requires an individualized approach based on the purpose or function of student's behavior. When the teacher approaches a student and tries to correct his behavior, or maybe instill a particular behavioral pattern in that student, teacher has to take into account the individuality of the student, his home setup, his qualities, his emotions. Certain children are very emotional. Certain others, they are not at all emotional. So all those have to be taken into account when instilling the behavioral patterns in children. Behavior is influenced by the type of reinforcement or other consequences received after behavior occurs. Motivation, right? If they receive something positive, the behavior will continue. If the child is getting, say, a physical reward for doing a good work, then definitely that child will tend to continue with different other charitable activities. If he is getting a negative reward, or if he is not rewarded at all and he is getting going unnoticed, then maybe his behavior will stop. Altering the setting or environment may improve student behavior. Take a classroom setup. Certain students, they tend to be very mischievous in the class. If they are placed with their companions, maybe placed with a particular student. If you change the place and try to shift them elsewhere, their behavior tends to change, right? So altering the setup, or maybe the environment can bring about behavioral change. Certain children who are very mischievous in the school, if you change the school and take him to a different place, to a different school in a different region, their behavioral patterns may change. Right? So, since behavior is partially environmentally determined, that works. Teacher and school-based teams need observational data to determine the function of the behavior of learners. Right? So, very important. We can't just rashly say that a student is telling lies, or maybe he is getting addicted to pornography or drugs or whatever it may be. Whatever accusation that is leveled against the student needs to be proved. So for that purpose, there should be some kind of an observational data, without which you can't just accuse or just say that the behavioral pattern of a child is not acceptable. So now usually when we find that the behavior is not acceptable, the next stage is sending the child to a counselor, or maybe having some kind of a intervention plan, implementing an intervention plan with the child. So to do that, first of all, there should be adequate data to prove that the child is undergoing a particular behavior related problem. Right? So thereby it's very important to note down things connected to learner behavior. Just by observing once or twice, you can't come to a conclusion. Continuously, we need to note down. So that is about characteristics of learner behavior. Once again, go through them. Certain features or characteristics. Tell me any characteristic that you can remember. One or two, not one or two, at least 3 or 4. Tell me any learner behavior characteristics connected to learner behavior.
Parents they have more impact on the children.
Right. Parents have more impact on children's learner shaping the behavior of the children.
Caretakers.
Caretakers, yeah, parents, caretakers, friends, all have equal
Behavior is learned, so it can be changed.
Behavioral patterns can be changed. How? Just give me one
By
way.
changing the like if the child is
The
having a
environment, if the
behavior
environment
pattern,
change,
yeah, we have to change their places to
By
see.
changing
environment.
environment. And by
Yeah.
changing, what else?
Seating arrangement.
In the classroom, it can be the seating arrangement. If your child is always creating a problem or if always getting into problem, what do you tell them? Don't interaction
warning.
by changing with whom they interact. If they are interacting with a set of friends, and if you find that particular group is always creating a mess or always bringing about some kind of a problem, then you make sure that they don't go and interact with them very often, right? So by changing the environment, by changing the interactions of people with whom they interact, right? So that can be one feature. Think of any other important feature.
If there is any misbehavior, there should be a written document a teacher should have in order to prove the behaviors that was happening in the class or school.
Evidence. Always learner behavior should be assessed with evidence. You can't assess the learner behavior without having concrete evidence. Right. Then comes learner behavior and its functions. That means if a person is behaving in a particular manner, what is the reason? There will be a reason. So nobody is going to behave in a certain manner without a reason. So likewise, even if the learner is exhibiting a particular kind of a behavior, directly or indirectly, he wants to tell something. He's communicating a message. Right? So why is a learner behaving in a particular way? What can be the hidden reasons? That is what is mentioned here as its functions. Right? So basically there can be 2 important reasons associated with the behavioral pattern of a learner. Read. Any learner behavior has a dual function too. Often this function is to attract or obtain something or else to avoid something. So for a child to behave in a particular way, there are 2 reasons. One is he or she might want to attract or get the attention of the teacher or get the attention of his peers, become famous in the class or in the school to gain popularity, or maybe to get some physical gifts or any other positions officers like that, right? So in order to get something with the purpose of obtaining something, children can exhibit a particular kind of a behavior. There will be some children who will be continuously disturbing the class, consistently from the beginning till the end. They will be talking or they will be interrupting the lesson. What's their problem? They want to seek the attention of the teacher. If you ignore them, they will behave, their behavioral pattern will be increasing, or they might behave in a different manner in order to gain the attention of the teacher. And that is one kind or one reason for their behavioral pattern. The second one is to avoid something, to refrain. Maybe due to fear, they want to avoid learning that particular subject, or they might not be confident about themselves. Therefore, they don't want to get involved in learning that, or maybe get involved in doing a certain activity. It can be an experiment or maybe a map marking task likewise, right? So in order to avoid something or else to attract something or someone, the learners behave in a particular manner, right? So that is the initial reason. The basic reason is that. Then you have attracting something is explained. Just go through it. When they are unable to obtain attention in an appropriate way, he or she resorts to negative behavioral patterns such as screaming, disrupting the class, hitting the others, or fighting with the others, right? So they want to gain the attention. Students may become aggressive in order to obtain desired goods. If they don't have, some children, they crave for something. It can be a mobile phone, it can be a calculator, or it can be a smartwatch. When they don't get that, if they are not in a position to get those objects, what will they do? The next thing will be either exhibiting some kind of an aggressive behavior to get it from their friend. Third one, may intentionally display oppositional behavior to gain control, to dominate others, to dominate the environment in order to escape from certain situation, or maybe in order to get something, right? So if you put them in the group, they will dominate the other group members in order to become famous or in order to get fame. So first, the teacher needs to identify the motive. Through observation, we need to identify the motive for that particular learning. Then see, under avoiding something, read. Students who do not like to get the attention, seek the attention of the teacher, they refuse to participate, or they refuse to get involved in the teaching learning process. Always they will get sick. As soon as you enter into the class, they will say, I'm not well today, teacher, I want to go to the sick room, or maybe I want to sleep, right? So those are all strategies that the student is using to avoid that situation, to avoid learning that subject, or to avoid the teacher. If the teacher is very strict and if they haven't brought the needed textbook or whatever that is the stationery, they come out with a particular kind of behavior, that is to avoid that lesson. So that is what is mentioned over here. Just read up. Read the third one. This first two I have explained. Look at the third one. Students may lie or cheat to avoid the unpleasant consequences. If they get demotivated or if they are threatened or warned, that too will bring about avoiding something. So to a certain extent, teacher can control this situation by being, by maintaining a good rapport with the learners. Then comes how to handle learner behavior, right? So you have the reasons or the motives behind learner behavior, attracting and avoiding something or maybe something or somebody. Then comes how to handle. Look at the procedure that is connected to handling learners. Initial requirement is observation. I told you, whenever you want to help out the learner, you should have concrete evidence, because this is something to do with the behavioral change in the child. Therefore, without having adequate information or adequate evidence, you can't come to a, first of all, coming to a conclusion that the child is in the wrong path or maybe he's lying. Likewise, you can't come to a conclusion. Therefore, observation over a period of time, not 1 day or 2 days. You have to observe him maybe for a month or maybe for a term. And still, if the behavior is same, then you need to do something about it. Both formal and informal setting, within the classroom, outside the classroom. It can be in the playground. It can be when you are taking them on a field trip, or it can be when they are in their friends' circles. Maintaining records regarding their behavior. It can be very informal record, just a diary note, or maybe just jotting down something on the record book, likewise. So observation, recording, identifying the probable reasons for the behavior. We discuss with the other teachers, maybe we discuss with the learner himself in a very informal setting, in a very friendly manner. You can try to get some information about his family background, about with whom he is staying, or what are the situations around him. All those will trigger the learner behavior. Initial decision making as well as continuous monitoring. So if at all, if we are good to find out the exact reasons, then we can have a good decision in helping out the child, how to help out the child. Implementing positive behavioral support, matching appropriate teaching strategies to students' need, right? So we tend to help the child out. Maybe if the family background is not conducive enough, you can give some advice, or maybe if there is a hostel, you can ask him to come and stay over there. So it's not an easy thing. You have to get in touch with several other people in order to help that child. And last one, according to the level of the child or the situation that the child is facing, teacher needs to amend the teaching strategies, simplify, or maybe conduct some remedial class like that. The same procedure is given in the form of a flow chart over here. Just to go through there. There you have 6. Here you have 5. One is merged into, 2 are merged into 1. Read and see whether you're able to understand. Observe behavior, tracking the behavior, identifying reasons or triggers, implementing an intervention plan. Now, for example, if the trigger is a bad company, if there are some friends who are instrumental in causing this problem, you tend to split. Maybe change them into a different class, or maybe ask the student not to mingle with them too often, likewise. And so if you identify the triggers properly, then the intervention plan will be successful. If the trigger is not properly identified, obviously the intervention plan will become unsuccessful. There will be one issue causing the problem, but we will be treating towards a different reason. And finally, progressing and monitoring. Progress monitoring, right? You continue to monitor over a period of time. So intervention plan itself will take some time, maybe 1 or 2 months. Along with that, teacher needs to monitor. Usually it's done in schools. It can be done by the class teacher or the subject teacher, or else you have to send it to the guidance or the counseling person who is in charge of the student counseling. Look at the positive practices that the teacher can have in the classroom to facilitate learner behavior. Be clear about the classroom rules and let students help create their own. Communication, clear communication with the students can solve so many issues. Every day, communicating with them properly, conveying the rules and the regulations that they need to observe during the class hours. They can't go out. They can't eat in the class. Likewise, just ensuring that the classrooms are implemented properly. Model positive behavior. Always appreciate them, encourage them. Teacher himself or herself show a good example, be an example to the student, right? So that kind of a setup will help them to have positive behavioral patterns. Conduct classroom meetings, pocket meetings. It can be with a group of learners, or it can be with children who are problematic likewise, and not to condemn them in front of the entire class. If 1 or 2 have gone wrong, not to pinpoint them or condemn them in front of the entire class. Just to call them privately and warn them or advise them. Show recognition for good work and positive behavior. It has something to do with the motivation. Then you have other ways through which learners' behavior can just read through them. How to facilitate learner behavior. Some other practices that can be utilized in the classroom. This is particularly during the teaching learning process. These 4 or 5, they are general practices that would instill positive learner behavior. Here, when it comes to subject-related teaching learning process, what are the different practices that the teacher can adhere to? Draw to represent information. Basically, if you very closely read all these, you will understand child involvement or making the child do something using his hands will solve many of those issues than just making them to write all the time. If you make them do certain activities, the behavioral changes, several behavioral changes can be brought about in the children. See, brought to represent information. It can be a mind map. It can be a picture. You make them focus their entire attention and do something. When we talk about the learner, different learner types, you find it out there. Provide guided notes for the student to finish during the lesson. It can be any kind of graphic organizers or anything. Questioning, making them speak. Not only teacher questioning, making them come out with the answers. Opportunities for movement during the lesson, not to make them sit at the same place. Change groups, put them into pairs. So definitely the attention of the learner will be involved in the lesson. If they are given an opportunity to idle, all these learner behavioral issues crop. Embed their passions, interests, and fascinations into the lesson. Basically create a very interesting lesson. Hands-on activities, provide hands-on activities. To do an experiment, maybe to do a practical. Utilize video clips, demonstrations, experiments, right? All these are learner involvement. The more they are getting involved in the lesson, the behavioral patterns, learner behavior will become better. They will not be mischievous or they will not behave in a negative manner. So when we plan out the lesson, we need to take these into account. Particularly if the class is very mischievous, if they are always interrupting the teacher, definitely the teacher needs to use more of hands-on learning activities than just making them to read and write, doing very similar kind of activities every day. Then we come towards types of learners. Tell me some procedure or maybe how to handle learning in the classroom. Anything that comes to you?
We have to be more clear about our classroom rules,
Okay.
and also we should have rewards for the positive behavior.
Good. Rewarding, motivating them for the positive behavior. When it comes to the teaching learning process, how can the teacher overcome the negative behavioral patterns of the learner?
We have to listen to the child, have to have a good relationship with the child.
rapport, then
Yeah,
listening,
positive relationship.
positive relationship, win the confidence of the child first of all,
Yeah.
and also
Love
what
and care have to be there.
Yeah.
Love and care.
love and care. Yeah.
Conduct hands-on activities during lesson periods so that the lesson will be more interesting for them to.
Adapting ways and means to conduct interesting lessons as well as practical sessions. Right, then we come towards types of learners. Right, so when it comes to the types of learners, basically based upon the learning style of the learner, we tend to categorize them. So there is no hard and fast or no standard type of learners. Just like having certain grammatical categories, you don't have a standard categorization when it comes to the types of learners. Different learner categorizations are possible. One of them is based upon the learning style. Read what learning style is all about. Refers to the way, so learning style is all about how people receive, store, and retrieve information, right? So not only how we learn something, how we receive information, store it in our brain, and also recall information. During these three activities, which sense is contributing more will decide on the learning style of that person. There are many different learning styles. Not everyone learns the same way. So each person has his or her own learning style. It can be one learning style or more than one. When you know the preferred learning style, we can adapt. You can adapt yourself better to the classroom and learn more effectively outside the class. So it's for the learner. So the learner has to, first of all, identify his own learning style. Is he an auditory learner? Is he a visual learner? We should identify our own learning style. Then only we'll be able to effectively learn. The same applies to the teacher as well. The teacher needs to identify the different learning styles of the learners. If there are 30 children in the class, most of them are what kind of learners? Are they visual, or are they auditory, or are they kinesthetic? The teacher should be aware of that. Then only it will help her to do a successful lesson. Basically, there are 6 learning styles which are listed over here. People learn through reading, writing, listening, speaking, visualizing things, imagination, manipulating, basically doing something, hands-on activities. So there are 6 predominant learning styles which get classified under 3 important ones. Essential, the 6 categories fall under 3 important learning styles: listening, auditory learners, visual learners by looking at something, observation, seeing, tactile ones by doing or performing activities. Right? So 6 ways of learning ultimately fall under these 3 learning styles: auditory, visual, and tactile. Based on the learning styles, you have different kinds of learners. Different types of learners can be found in a class. Just go through them. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, verbal learners, people who are very articulative, who can use the language very well, right? Speaking tasks. Logical learners, especially children who are good in reasoning, mathematics, science, right? Analytical skills, they fall under logical learners. Social learners, people who are good in learning with others. That means basically people who are good in learning as a group. Some students, they are not social learners. If you put them into groups, they won't be able to learn. They need to be individual in order to learn, right? So social learners means people who are good in working with others and learning something. Solo, individual ones. Natural or nature learners, children who are good in learning something in a natural setup. That means you need to take them out into the playground or maybe under the shade of a tree. If you place them, they are good in learning in that kind of a natural environment, in the garden or in the park or maybe just at a grassy meadow. They will be able to learn better. So just go through these different types of learners once again. Basically, there are 8 types of learners according to your syllabus. There are 8 different types of learners in a class. Just read it. Look at visual learners. Include reading, writing, visualizing, right? Dependent mostly on lecture notes, keep text. Always they will be busy writing something. When you explain or when you teach, they will be focused on taking down notes, reading assignments, keep up on reading and take notes while reading, right? So if you observe them very carefully, they would have prepared short notes or maybe in the margin they would have written notes. All those are indicators that the person is a visual learner. Create study aids such as note cards, mind maps, draw diagrams, right? So if you have children who are involved or who are engaged in doing these kind of activities, be assured that they are visual learners. You need to use more of pictures or maybe any kind of reading material or written stuff to teach them. Then you have the auditory ones. They are not much inclined towards writing, but they need to listen to somebody speaking. They will be always very attentive listeners. See, includes speaking and listening. They will learn by explaining the content to another person, to a weaker student, if you ask them to go and explain it, that will help the auditory learner. Right? So compatible with lecture notes, may benefit from participating in a study group, so you can hear the others discuss the concept. Right? So they need to listen to people talking about the concept. They need to explain the concept to some others so that they will remember it. Dependent on tape lectures, they read aloud, or maybe they will speak aloud to themselves in order to remember things. Then comes tactile or kinesthetic. People who need to do something in order to remember and learn. Hands-on activities, manipulation, engaging in experiments, or maybe fixing up things, any kind of machinery, all those things are important for the tactile learners. Build models or replicas in subjects like history and all. They need to do something if they are to remember. Create charts, diagrams, graphs, take down notes. For visual ones also you can use this, but for tactile ones also you can use it. Make flashcards, utilize them in their studies. Transcribe handwritten classroom notes on the computer, or maybe whatever that they are having in the computer or in the pen drive, they tend to write it down. It's a form of a kinesthetic activity. Make sure they do the practice problems and homework for math and all. So basically, kinesthetic means they need to involve themselves in doing something that will help them to learn. Allow them to draw as an activity, right? Small children, primary grades, kinesthetic activities are very important. Children's physical growth itself depends on these kind of activities. So you need to take them out, you need to make them engage in activities. If it is going to be language, ask them to sing, ask them to give instructions, mime, act out. So they learn the language as well as their physical development too. Bodily development, muscle, and other parts of the body get developed very quickly. Performing experiment or role plays, simulation activities, right? All those are good for kinesthetic ones. Dancing, singing, introducing, solving puzzles, or making use of any other physical object. Then comes the verbal ones. Verbal learners or linguistic learners. These type of learners simply enjoy making use of language. So they are good at learning the language, first of all. Then the others, these people, they can learn language very successfully. Like oral learners, people who listen and learn. Verbal ones enjoy rhymes and wordplay, right? So they need to use the language practically to speak or maybe to sing. Verbally, they need to use the language. Some strategies for promoting learning among verbal language learners, see, group discussions, make them involved in presentation, any kind of small presentations, role-playing dialogues, or maybe oratory, speeches, narrating stories, all those can be effectively implemented with these people. They will willingly come forward to use the language verbally. Logical ones. Read. Look for patterns and trends in what they learn. Basically, they look for reasons. Logical learners, they are always on the lookout for a reason. As long as there is a reason, they will be able to connect things together, put things together, and logically remember them. Right? So they are good in analytical skills, subjects like IT, mathematics, science, work very well with them. You can easily use them for debating or maybe delivering speeches, right? Not just speeches, scientific related speeches. They are good at those. Even writing scientific articles using the language, they are very good at that. They may lack creative thinking, but definitely the scientific knowledge will help them in learning the language. Problem solving abilities, right? So any material that is catering towards problem solving will work very well with them. Then comes the social learners. So as I have already mentioned, people who are capable of working together in order to learn the language. Social interaction. Say, involve participation with others. Social learners will always willingly participate with others. Let it be group discussions, let it be group presentations or any kind of activity, project related activity, they will, where they need to work with others, they will willingly contribute and they will learn something out of it. Then you have the different kinds of activities, role play, group activities, discussions, extracurricular activities, right? Like school band or maybe guiding, scouting, or organizing a concert. So these kind of learners, they are good at that. Solo ones, individual learners. Contrast to social learners, students who prefer to study alone. Certain students, they won't work in groups. They are incapable of working in groups, right? They will be just wasting their time if they are put into groups. Those kind of people are going to be solo. So for the solo learner, teacher has to be more careful in noting down their preferable learning style, whether they are auditory or visual or kinesthetic. Accordingly, teacher needs to cater to them. The last one, natural or nature related learners. Read. Learners who do best when interacting with Mother Nature, when they are placed in a natural environment. They seem to respond best to a more peaceful nature type of learning. So they can be either tactile learners, auditory, visual, any kind of learners, but their learning style will emerge when they are placed in a natural environment, right? So when they are taken outdoors and when they are assigned the task to be done outdoors, they tend to learn it successfully. Hands-on learning, right? So it can be outdoor activities or it can be even writing or drawing something. Whatever they do outdoors will bring about success to them. Look at your self-study task. Tell me the different kinds of learners, first of all, before the self-study task. Name them. There were 8. Can you please name them from the beginning?
Visual,
Auditory learners,
What was the second one?
auditory,
auditory,
Auditory. Okay. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. After that,
verbal,
verbal.
logical,
social,
solo, and
natural.
natural.
Nature. Solo, nature. What is that? The 8th one.
natural,
Natural.
Nature or natural, both are same. Before solo, social.
social,
Social, solo, and natural. Which ones are text dependent?
visual,
Which ones do, which ones perform well when they work outdoors?
Natural.
learners.
natural.
Tell me a characteristic of an auditory learner. Any characteristic related to an auditory learner?
They learn
Prefer to
to
listen more.
speak. Yeah,
Listening skills only.
yeah. They
Listening.
prefer to listen.
Listen.
Who are incapable of working in groups?
Solo learners.
Solo learners.
Look at your self-study class. What is learner behavior? You have to explain it a bit, right? So briefly explain. What factors determine it? How many factors are there determining learner behavior?
3.
3. What are they?
Self, others, and circle.
So just explain what learner behavior is all about and then mention the factors and explain each of those factors. Explain any 5 possible ways of handling learner behavior in a classroom. How can a teacher handle the learner behavior generally in the classroom? For example, you can have pocket meetings, you can lay down basic classroom rules, teacher himself or herself can be a good example, set a good example for them to follow, like that. Wise. Plus, during the teaching learning process, what are the different techniques or the strategies that the teacher can use to bring about positive learner behaviors in the classroom, right? So can you remember in this one? Right. So there are 10. You don't need to write all those, just pick and choose any 5 or 6, at least 5, and elaborate on them. Just explain a bit. That's what is the mention the different types of learners in a classroom. All the 8 types of learners you have to mention. And mention at least 3 kinds of activities that can be used in teaching them. So first mention the 8 types: auditory, visual, solo, social, like that. Mention, and then against each, you just write down any 3 kinds of activities. So that's it. Are you okay with the self-study task? Any clarification that you need to make?
Ma'am, can I
Yes.
have the auditory learner slide, please?
Take.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anybody else who have missed out on any of these slides?
Ma'am, I have a doubt in the second question. Since you have asked us to write 5 in the self-study study task, you have asked us to write 5, right? But in the general one, do we have to mention 5 separately and teaching process 5, or altogether we
No.
can?
Overall.
Overall. Okay.
Don't mention only the general, or don't mention only the teaching strategies. Connect both. Mention 2 or 3 under general and the rest of it from the classroom strategies, right? Collectively mention 5.
Okay, ma'am.
Right. So that is about the day 1's content connected to learner behavior, right? So I hope you are okay with that. And the day 2's one, just tell me what did we discuss as a whole? Just only focusing on the topics. Just tell me what did we do today before we wind up? Starting from the beginning.
About learners' behavior
Yeah.
and the characteristics of it.
The developmental stages from
Developmental stages of the child,
infancy to adolescence.
infancy, and how many stages are there?
5.
5. Infancy, toddlerhood,
Toddlerhood, early childhood, middle and late childhood, adolescence.
adolescence. Right. So we talked about the developmental stages, then characteristics. What else? Explaining
Function,
what is that?
the learner's behavior function.
Function. Why? The purpose or the reason behind learner behavior. What are the 2 dual reasons? 2 reasons. Either to gain,
Attract and avoiding.
attract, or avoid. What else? Towards the end, what did we discuss? Towards the end of the session.
Types of learners.
Of learners.
Different types of learners.
Mm.
Right. So you complete this self-study task and I'll be meeting you on next Sunday, no? Next Sunday at the same time. If you haven't finished the previous self-study task, please make sure that you complete it. Don't have any arrears.
Ma'am,
Okay.
may I know how many units do we have altogether?
16.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay then. We'll wind up the session and I'll be meeting you on next Sunday.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.